Malibongwe. Your Excellency, President Jacob Zuma, Deputy President, Excellency Cyril Ramaphosa, the Minister in the Presidency responsible for us women, Susan Shabangu, Minister of Arts and Culture, Natim Tetwa, the Acting Premier of Gauteng, Nandi Mayatula, cause our sister, our stalwart, Sophie the Brain, and Mamu, and all the stalwarts that are here. The Minister, but more importantly, the President of the ANC Women's League, all the ministers who are here, all the premiers who are here, and all the stalwarts and all the women and men who are here to celebrate Women's Day. Happy Women's Day. Who would have thought that there would be a public holiday dedicated to women? We owe it to Bo Mamu, Sophie the Brain, and all the stalwarts that came before us. And that's why we must celebrate, we must commemorate, and we must honor them. And we really thank the former Premier, Umama Action, for initiating the beautiful monument that we saw this morning. And of course, the present Premier and the Gauteng legislature and all the people, the executive of Gauteng. I feel deeply humbled to be here today to bring you greetings from the African Union Commission as we celebrate an event that is not only historic for South Africa, but for African women across the continent. On this day, 60 years ago, South African women from across the country, from all national groups, from all walks of life, took a stand. And they said, "Wathinta bafazi, wathinta imbokodo. You struck the women, you struck the rock." The bravery and the daring of the South African women who organized this day ensure that it could not be excluded from the historic annals of history of Pan-African struggles against slavery, colonialism, and apartheid. They followed in the footsteps of women from Northern, Southern, Central, and East Africa who, despite the position they occupied in their societies, resisted and struggled for freedom, side by side with their menfolk. The South African heroines, such as Charlotte Maxeke, Lillian Ngoyi, Helen Joseph, Sophie the Brain, Dorata Mane, Aida Mtwana, Albertina Sisulu, Josie Palmer, Betha Gowa, Winnie Madikizela Mandela, Sisi Gool, Annie Silinga, Florence Matomela, Hilda Beinstein, Bibi Dawood, Francis Barr, Dorothy Nyembe, Adelaide Tambo, Fatima Mir, and thousands of others joined the illustrious women leaders and heroines from across the continent. The continent also has very brave fighters that fought for the liberation of their countries. I will mention a few. Queen Zinga Mbandi from Angola, Kipa Vita from Congo, Tete Yala from Senegal, Sararui from Mangui of Niger, Ya Asanti of Ghana, Makenda, the Queen of Sheba in Ethiopia, Queen Alasia of the Carthaginian Empire, Nehenda of Zimbabwe, Amina of the Zazu, Queen Dahai Al-Kahina of Mauritania, and many others. Those women had in common an unflinching commitment to the freedom and dignity of their people, and to the freedom, prosperity, and dignity of their children and future generations. They knew that the only way to safeguard, to fight for this, was through organization. This is why it is a well-known fact that the oldest university in the world, the University of Al-Qarawiyyin in Morocco, was founded by a woman, Fatima Al-Fahiri. And the great historic site of Timbuktu is named after a woman. Across the continent, there are examples of this commitment to struggle and organization displayed by women. The UNESCO publication on women, African women, Pan-Africanism and African Renaissance, produced as part of the 50th anniversary of the Pan-African Women's Organization, cite numerous instances of organization, mobilization, and struggle by women. Excellencies, comrades, mothers and sisters, as we therefore remember and celebrate our heroines today, it must be a clarion call to continue their struggles. They brought us to where we are today. We are able to stand here at the Union Building with our heads high because they made those sacrifices. It is a clarion call that the struggle continues. We must continue their struggle for the right to education for our children, girls and boys, to give them skills and knowledge to become productive and patriotic citizens of their countries and our great continent. We must mobilize African young men and women to become drivers of transformation in our continent and our countries, to make sure that they are skilled in science, technology, maths, engineering, and can be innovators of this African Renaissance. We must work hard to make sure that women are part of the economy, that women have access to land, they have access to finance. Though I'm speaking on behalf of the continent, our continental framework says that at least governments must set aside 30% of procurement for women businesses. And I hope that the President and the Deputy President in South Africa are listening. Because we do need, as women, to grow our businesses. We need to move from micro businesses to be normal businesses and build big business empires, and the state must assist us. We must also make sure that women are part of every area of human endeavor. They must be in government, the public sector, they must be in all professions, the security sector, the judiciary. We must also continue the struggle against violence against women and children. We must continue the struggle against sexual violence against women in conflict and women in peacetime. Women must be critical to any peace and conflict resolution as a precondition for lasting peace. Comrades, excellencies, Let me conclude by a call in the history and spirit of Pan-African solidarity that has characterized the women's movement in South Africa and across the continent. When women, girls, and children in one part of the continent suffer as a result of conflict, poverty, and exclusion, cultural and religious practices, as a result of laws and policies, it must be an injury to all of us. When women, girls, and children in another part of the continent make progress by getting greater access to land, public procurement, to capital, or by moving towards greater gender equity in the political sphere, closing the gender gap in incomes, it is a victory for all of us. The South African women's movement, past and present, is a critical part of the African women's movement. As we therefore celebrate 60 years of this historic Women's March, we should rededicate ourselves to the organization, values, and dedication of this great generation of African women. We must defend these hard-won struggles and freedoms. We must also mobilize young women and continue the intergenerational dialogue, because we accept that young women face different challenges than the challenges older women face. And they face different challenges than we faced when we were young. So it's important to have this intergenerational dialogue. And I'm glad to see so many young women in this arena today. But let us again, once more, salute the women who made it possible for us to be here today. But I must say, speaking as the chair of the African Union, who happens to be a South African, to say, I did get calls from people at the AU, and they said, is it as bad as it looks? And I didn't know what to say. So we mustn't squander the hard-won freedom that the women of Sophie de Bruyn and others fought for. How can we today, I'm speaking as chair of the AU, be listening to parties talking about hung councils? I think something is wrong, but I'll just leave it there as chair of the AU. I don't interfere in internal affairs of countries. But as the AU, we look up to South Africa. And if South Africa is weak, and the leaders of South Africa are weak, the continent is weak. So we owe it to those women, President of South Africa and Deputy President, that this country must be strong. Strong for itself, but strong for the continent. So let's salute those women, salute the women of South Africa, and salute the women of Africa, and make sure we will never squander their sacrifices, their work. And those women organized when they didn't have money, they didn't have anything. Today we have an enhanced sense of entitlement. When we are asked to do something, we ask, where is money for this? Where is money for that? Those women had nothing, but they used the little they had. Let's adopt their spirit. See how much they achieved. Let's follow in their footsteps. Malibongwe, Malibongwe. Malibongwe. Wathinta bafazi, wathinta imbokodo, uzokufa. Wathinta bafazi, wathinta imbokodo, uzokufa. Finish. Thank you.
Wathinta bafazi. How? Ngathi senilele nje makhosikazi kwenzakalana nisazwakali. Wathinta bafazi. Wathinta bafazi. Uzokufa. Nya nya nya. Thank you very much, Chairperson of the African Union, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, for reminding us about where we come from, but also where we are going as a country, as a continent, but also not to undermine and take for granted the democracy, the struggles fought for by the women of 1956. Siyabulela, siyabonga kakhulu.